Before going into the lane, most of the time we know the heroes that we're gonna be facing. So it is very important to plan according to your lane. Some important things that you need to think about are: what is my role in this matchup? How should I play the lane? What items should I be building? First of all, you need to understand the nature of your hero. Every hero has a different role in laning phase. You need to play your hero depending on the strengths of it. To make it simple for you, I will categorize them. Heroes like Undying, Chen, Enchantress, Rubik, Trent are lane dominating supports. These supports are really good at trading. Undying with his decay strength can fight both the position 4 and position 3. Chen with his neutrals doesn't let position 4 trade with him. Enchantress with neutral creep and impetus. Rubik has a fade board that reduces the damage and can trade better. Trend Protector can walk in trees and has a high damage to trade better, and also has a healing ability and slow. With these heroes, you can play aggressively in lane. Your positioning in the lane depends upon the type of support you're playing. Now, there are heroes that are not really good at dominating the lane on their own, but with the help of their position 1, they can be a real threat. These heroes are Crystal Maiden, Disruptor, Grimstroke, Lich, Lion. These heroes generally need to play a little safe in the lane. If these heroes try to fight the enemy heroes on their own, there's a high chance that they will end up dying and feeding. Their strength lies in good positioning and combination of their spell with position 1. After figuring out the type of support you're playing, you will have a better idea of how you should play in the lane. Items depends on the heroes you're facing, but there's a general build which is pretty much applicable in almost every game. Now this is a game where position 5 Disruptor is playing against Sky and Necro. Both the heroes are spellcasters, so it's better to go for Magic Stick, as you will keep getting stick charges to deal with HP and mana problems. Branches will give you stats, so it's better to buy branches to get some mana, HP and armor, and later on it can be converted into Magic Wand. Always bring a sentry which can be used to either unblock your small camp or block the enemy hard camp, depending upon the situation, which I will cover in this video. If the enemy doesn't have many spellcasters in lane, then you can get a circlet and 3 branches instead of a magic stick. As circlet also gives 2 plus all stats, you'll have a higher HP in lane to fight and more mana to use your spells. After the items, the first thing that we need to do is go with our team and fight for a bounty rune. After the bounty rune fight, make sure to get back to the lane as soon as possible. Hanging around there can lead to a bad laning stage, which can give enemy team a good enough advantage to control the lane. For example, in this scenario, I am the disruptor and I wasted too much time getting back to the lane, and my carry ended up in less than 50% HP before I got to the lane. Instead, I should have teleported back to the lane in the beginning, rather than walking all the way. The point is, don't hesitate to use your teleport if you're far away from the lane, because the first two waves are really important, and whoever gets the level 2 first has an advantage in lane. If you're playing a lane dominating support and your lane is stronger than the enemy, in that case you should not block the hard camp, because every time the enemy pulls the hard camp, either you can stop it or farm it, and in case of your lane being pushed towards the enemy tower, you can pull the hard camp yourself to bring the lane back to your tower. If you're strong in lane, then mirror the movement of their position 4. If he goes to the left side, you can also play on the left side of the lane. If he goes to the right side, you can also switch your position and harass both position 3 and 4. If you're playing against a hard lane, then you should play on the opposite side of their support and try to harass the position 3 only whenever you can. Use your courier to get healing against such hard matchups. If enemy heroes have more spell damage than you, in that case you can use your courier to call for a healing salve beforehand. People don't prioritize much healing items, and if you're able to keep using courier to get healing instead of saving gold to get any big item, you will be able to win hard lanes as well. Even though this lane started pretty bad because I did not join my carry in the lane for the first wave and he took 50% damage, we still managed to recover as I kept forcing the enemy to use their spells on me and called for solve multiple times. If I hadn't used courier for solves, I would be standing AFK scared of the enemy and only ruining my carry's game. If you're playing a short range hero like Jakiro and you're up against a hard matchup where you're unable to trade with enemy support, Just position yourself where you don't take damage from the enemy and wait for the enemy to make the wrong move. 80% of the time, the enemy's offlane will try to auto attack the ranged creep, and that is your timer to harass the enemy hero. Remember, every time you pull, there has to be a purpose. Right now, the dire wave is coming, and eventually the lane is gonna be close to Bloodseeker's tower, but the support has pulled the lane. In this case, the dire can dive into the tower easily, and if they use their spells correctly, they can either kill the Bloodseeker or further zone him out more, and Bloodseeker will miss the entire creep wave. There was no need to pull in this scenario. Most of the support players just casually pull the lane and end up ruining the lane. The main purpose of pulling the neutrals is to balance the lane. There are gonna be two radiant waves and one dire wave. In this scenario, pull is required to balance the lane, otherwise dire will have the lane close to their tower, which will be bad for radiant. If you want to pull more efficiently, then you need to know this information. If the wave is in the enemy's tower, don't pull the entire wave to neutral camp. If you pull the entire wave, the enemy's creep wave will go into your tower and your tower will push the creeps. And then again, the lane's balance is gonna be ruined. Meanwhile, the enemies will farm the hard camp as well as the 4 creeps that you have pulled. So this kind of pull favors the enemies. Instead, just pull 2 or 3 creeps and see how it sets the equilibrium of the lane in your favor. Not only does it give you the ideal position of the wave, but also denies the XP of 2 creeps that you have pulled. Securing the Lotus is really important in lane. Any kind of feeling in lane changes the outcome of the lane. You need to plan at least 20 or 30 seconds before securing the Lotus. You can either push the lane towards the enemy's side so it's easier for you and your core to get the Lotus, or you can start throwing your spells and zoning the enemy heroes so they're unable to contest the Lotus. It is not going to happen in every game, but the importance of Lotus can be seen here. Takis used Lotus on Shaker and Shaker survived the fight. Had the Dire not secured the Lotus, this trade would have heavily favored the Radiant side. If you're playing heroes like Lion, Bat, Rubik, or Crystal Maiden that has an ability to stun the enemy or throw them away from their position, you should always get ready to steal the Wisdom Rune. Even if you die in return, it's worth it because overall, the EXP you and your other support gets is more than the golden XP the enemy gets from killing you. Also, it makes the game hard for enemy supports as it will get really hard for them to get level 6. To decide whether you wanna stay in lane or leave the lane depends on the heroes you're up against and the hero you're playing. If the enemy hero has a Vanguard or level 6 and your hero does nothing to the enemy hero, for example, if you're playing CM and enemy has a Doom with a Vanguard or Darkseer with a Vanguard, and your carry does not want to lane anymore, you can also decide to rotate to other lane and give your impact rather than standing AFK in your lane and feeding. But in the same scenario, if you're playing a hero like Winter Wyvern, who can push out the lane with Splinter Blast and fly away in the trees if the enemy tries to commit, then you can stay in lane and get levels. Another case in deciding whether I should stay in lane or not depends upon you communicating with your carry. If your carry is strong enough and is good to lane alone and wants some XP alone, you can leave the lane. As a support, securing water runes and power runes for mid laner is very crucial as it decides the mid matchups in most cases. If your lane is going well and you have time, you can rotate to secure the water rune. Mostly position 4 does the rune securing job, but securing power rune has a huge impact in game as it enables your mid laner to either win mid pretty hard or gank side lanes. Secure power rune for your mid lane at 6, 8 and 10 minutes if you can. If you're playing a strong hero that can disable an enemy and steal the rune, then you can be aggressive on the rune, but if you're playing a hero like Disruptor, which doesn't do much alone, then you should play around your mid laner and help him secure the rune. If you try to steal the rune on your own, there's a high chance the enemy support and mid laner will kill you. There's also a kill potential on runes, so make sure to be there on time. Some small details that can make your game a little more efficient are: you can make your courier stand outside the base for fast items, as the shop is accessible from a little outside the fountain. Take the lane watcher as the lane start, so if anyone ganks from the gate, you can avoid, as there is only one way to come from behind. Your items after the laning stage depends on what your hero needs against the enemy heroes. The general strong position for items are Pavis, Glimmer Cape, Force Staff, Solar Crest, Drums. Now you need to decide which item you need in order to survive in the game. If the enemy heroes has a lot of magic damage, like Storm Spirit, Tekis, Skyrath Mage, you can build a Glimmer into 4 staff. Passively, Glimmer gives 25% magic resistance, and if used on yourself or ally, it gives 40 movement speed and a barrier that absorbs 30 magic damage, which is insanely good to survive in team fights or help your cores out. Force Staff is the most important support item as it helps your cores get out of bad positions as well as helps you survive in case an enemy has jumped on you. For a support, it is very important to stay alive in the fight and help their team from behind. If the enemy team has less magic damage but more physical damage, then you can build Pavis into Solar Crest or Pavis, Force Staff, and Solar Crest depending upon what you and your team needs more. Now the question is, when do I make Pavis? For example, if the enemy has a Terror Blade or a Wraith King carry, you can build a Solar Crest to help your core have a better team fight. Pavis works great if you're building more armor items like Solar Crest because Pavis gives a barrier that absorbs 300 damage. If you apply Pavis and Solar to your teammate will get 7 armor from Solar and receive less damage, as having more armor means taking less physical damage, which makes Pavis more valuable. Do let me know in the comments if you have any feedback as it will help me improve. If you're interested in private coaching, you can join my Discord linked in description.